Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is Wednesday, and that means we're live for another Masterclass session. Today, we're going to be showing power users how to create family trees. So, genealogies are super important to world building, whether you're writing a novel, or making a tabletop RPG, or making a video game, whatever it might be. You're going to need a way to keep track of your genealogies. Family trees are a way to do that. Now, as you can see, I've got a couple here on the screen that I've made. So you can kind of get an idea of what you can make with it. We got like a parchment version. We have like a royal blood family tree one where there is no tree structure, but you have little pieces there. And then we have like a vampire coven tree. The structure is a bit different there. And then we have like this storybook family tree template. So there's quite a few different ways that you can make a family tree. And likely we'll be trying to mimic this one right here because it doesn't have, it's a generic theme. And then once you kind of get the basics on how to put together the structure for a family tree, then you can make any one of any theme, whether it's a vampire, orcs, war chieftains, whatever it might be. So just getting down the basics. So we'll make a generic one, and then you'll be able to translate that into make any kind of theme that you want. All right, let's go ahead and get started here. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new map. And we're going to use, let's see here. Let's use Fantasy Regional for now. It really doesn't matter which style you use, but I mean, for now, we'll just use Fantasy Regional. I'm going to go to Ultra 4K, and we're going to go with your regular landscape. You can make them portrait, square, or custom. It doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter on the structure. Like if it's going to be a lot of people, a lot of people on your tree, then maybe you want to go for something like a portrait or something with a more verticality to it, because that way you have enough room for it. So we'll go ahead and create the new map, let that come up. And if you guys have any questions, anything, just feel free on anything that we're working on in the stream. Feel free to ask right there in the chat. Also, all of those maps that you saw, those will all be available on my profile. I'll go ahead and add those to the video description on YouTube when I upload that. Okay, let's jump right in. So first, I'm just going to make my background a totally different color. So I'm going to go to my advanced. Let's go to texture here. I'm actually going to switch over to fantasy. I'm going to go to Parchment World. We'll open that up. We're going to use kind of a brighter color. There we go. All right, it's going to be my base color. Then after I've done that, I want to turn the grid on. And let's use the square because the snap to grid doesn't work with isometric, or the hex only works here. So we'll go ahead and turn that on. And then also, maybe I'll switch it over to 20 instead. So I'll cut it in half. There we go. And then once I've done that, now I need to decide a theme, right? What's super important is how do you know which style to use? How do you know what the layout's going to be? How do you know how many people are going to be on it? And really, it depends on the theme, right? So if you're doing like a noble or royal family, then you're going to find that, you maybe want to go with kind of like her heraldry and things like that, right? Or if you're doing an orc chieftain tree, then you're probably going to want to use orc stamps from the fantasy battle map style, right? So putting a family tree together requires a theme, and the theme I'm picking is just your generic family tree. We're not going to go with something like vampire or whatever, though that's cool. And maybe another stream we can go over that. But we'll start by making the base of where the tree is going to stand. And like I said, basic human, we're going to go with like the storyboard kind of look. So what we'll do is we'll go to the shape tool, and I'm going to create like this floating base. We're going to use a circle. We're going to go select shape for the stroke. We're going to choose a stroke stamp. And let's see here. Let's go to, I think it's under Fantasy World. There should be something called a grass. Let me take this look. Grass. Oh, I think it's actually under Fantasy Battle Maps. 1 second while we open that up. There we go. It's just going to take a minute to load the art. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a circular platform in which a tree is going to stand on top of. And then I'll have my two people who are going to be like the base of the family, the elders of the family. I'll put them standing on that base at where the tree is. So we'll choose the stamp, and I'm going to choose also a fill, or I can use either clipping mask, or I can use a texture. It's really up to you. For now, I'll just do fill. Well, actually, we'll do a texture. And we're going to turn snap to grid on, and then you use the grid as a guide to kind of help you to make sure that pieces are snapped in or straightened out. Yeah. Oh, I love the idea. Yeah, we're going to make a tree. All right. Okay, we got snap to grid on. Oopsie, you know what? I'm going to turn preview on so that that way I can move things around a little bit. Let me see here. Looks like 6 across there. I think that will do for now. So let's go plus. There we go. And you'll notice that my I got the wrong texture there. So I'll just go into the catalog here and choose a grass texture of my choice. And there's a lot of different things you could use. You could use this grass texture right here. You could use a grass texture from a different style, like there's that parchment texture. Use something like that, or you could just go to Inkarnate, click Inkarnate tag in the catalog, and then type in grass, and then all the various types of grass textures will be there. So if I type in grass, you'll see that I have lots of variations here. Watercolor battle maps work too really well. I've noticed that you can use a lot of these artifacts right here. They work perfect for that kind of thing. And you'll notice that that the line work is a little bit less, has a little less contrast to it, so it's a little bit grayer. So if you do want the grass to kind of match with that, you can just bring the contrast down, and you'll see that it matches kind of the same line work. So it's up to you which one you want to use. It doesn't really matter. So that part is done. Let's go ahead and create the other part of the base. So I'll copy and paste. We're going to go down one layer. And I'm going to take this piece right here and I'm going to lock it so I don't accidentally select it. Let's go ahead and turn snap to grid off for now. And I'll just make this a teeny bit smaller, like this. And then I'm going to use a different texture for this. So let's turn stroke off, and then let's change the fill to something else. Fantasy battle maps, we could use like this kind of grayish, like stone, kind of this Minecraft-y kind of look to it, right? And then we can bring the brightness down so it contrasts against the lightness of the... And then from here, I'll go ahead and add in the straight lines that need to come with it. So I can go in and turn preview. I'm going to zoom in, go to square here, and then I'm going to go ahead and line this up so I have this nice piece right here. Let's go up. Let me zoom in and make sure that I have these edges connecting properly. This could move in just a little bit more. There we go. And then I just go to plus, like this. And then there is my platform for the tree. So I'll go ahead and group this and call it base or platform or whatever it is you want, okay? All right, and then you can decide if you want to change the scale of it to be bigger or smaller. I would probably choose a little bit smaller so it doesn't take up all the room, right? When it comes to the tree, the base of the tree is the smallest, the trunk, and then the top of the tree where all the foliage is the bigger part, okay? So it's not a bad idea to probably make that platform be a little bit smaller. And we'll turn the snap to grid back on to make sure that it kind of stays centered. There we go. I'll just go take it down just a little bit. Right down. I don't want to bring it all the way down, but about here. And then we can go ahead and take that. I'll go ahead and turn off the grid for now. We're not going to use it. And we'll do that next step, which will put a tree down. Now, there are a lot of different ways that you can make a tree. There are tree stamps that you can use. So let me just type in tree, and I'll kind of show you the options that you have. But a lot of the trees that might work for here could be in Fantasy Regional, or you can make your own. So in Fantasy Regional, let's go to Fantasy Regional. I'll kind of show you here. You'll see there's a lot of trees here that you can kind of work with. One thing that reason why I don't really like using the Fantasy Regional trees is because it has a built-in shadow, and I'll show you some tricks on how to fix that. And also, I kind of find that that the line work just gets really thick the more you zoom in. So see how small that is at 100%? And so what we'll do instead is we're going to make our own tree. And the way to do that is not complex, actually. We can go into Fantasy Battle Maps and just type in tree. And there should be a fallen tree that we can just use and put foliage on top of it. So we can kind of use these kind of trees right here. Not those ones, but the ones that have foliage on them, like this one right here. Works just fine. Okay, and I'll go ahead and make sure that's facing. We'll turn the shadow off. And then I can actually fit this tree down and try to center it. Turn the snap to grid off. Try to center that right here like this. And then if you're wondering, well, that looks weird because I can see the branches and stuff, we're going to put foliage on top of it. So you'll be able to hide inconsistencies like this little missing piece right here in the center. And then also you'll notice that there are these pieces right here are showing. And so we're going to have to hide those things. just one of those tricks you have to do, right? If something is in the way, you can hide it, right? It's okay. And so one way to hide it is to just throw down some grass. Like I can take some grass, and I'll use Fantasy Regional for the grass, and then you can just go ahead and place it down. And what I'll do is I want it to match some of the same grass, so I'll just go to U. I'm going to go to Saturation. I'm going to bring the brightness up, and I'm going to bring the contrast down just a little bit, and then I can go ahead and change the U to make sure that the grass fits. So it kind of fits in there. Now I can just take that grass pieces and just kind of hide the inconsistency pieces here that are kind of in the way. And it also just kind of looks nice. You're adding some extra pieces. And then we'll take one and go in the back behind the tree to create overlap. So I'll bring this down a layer and then take this right here, and you'll see that I'll put some in the back. And if you want, you can even bring the brightness down a little bit so that it shows some contrast, right? That it's in the back. So we'll bring the brightness down. There we go. And then I'll place a couple, one right here, here, bring one over here. There we go. That looks good. And then one maybe right here. Okay. And then now that I've done that part, and I've kind of fixed a lot of those inconsistencies, I can now move on to that next step, which is I can start making the tree part. So the foliage. Okay. And what I'll do here is I will, let's not worry about that. Let's go ahead and go back to Fantasy Battle Maps, and we'll just type in tree. And we're going to create the foliage part. Super easy to make. And I think these will work right here. And just make sure you turn the shadow off and make sure it's up a layer so it's above the tree. And then what I do is I just start hiding all the branch work first. And once all the branch work is done, now I can start setting the parameters of how big the tree is going to be, right? So if I want the tree to be fairly big, then I can start placing pieces kind of like this until I get that kind of that shape that I'm looking for. All right, so maybe I even want another piece kind of up at the top here. Okay, there we go. And so now we have our tree part. There we go. And you'll notice that the line work is a bit different. Don't worry, we're going to fix that using filters. Let's go ahead and save it real quick, and then we'll kind of keep going. So I'm going to call this family tree. There we go. Okay, we're going to let this save. And what we'll do now is I'll go ahead and start putting down the filters. Normally I would do filters right away, but one thing I want to do is I'm going to use some of these filters to fix some of the inconsistencies that exists on the map. So you'll notice that there's all this various different types of line work and different type of stamps from different styles. And so it doesn't really all go together very well. And so we'll use a series of filters to do that. And the first one I'm going to use is going to be faded. And faded is really important because what faded will do is it's going to give it this kind of storybook kind of feel to it. You notice that it starts to give it this kind of storybook illustration look to it, which is what we want. So that's good. And then also I might want to change my background color because it's a little too white. So I can go back to Parchment World and maybe use a lighter gray color and just go to fill. There we go. And now it's not pure white. Okay, and other things that I could do is I can also throw in a clarity filter. Turn that down a little bit, just a little bit of clarity there. And then one other one is we can do a color adjustment filter. And from here, you can do things like, if you want it to be even more storybook, you can drop the contrast and then boost up the brightness and fade it even more to give it a storybook look. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing it. So I'm going to go ahead and just bring the contrast down just a little bit. I don't want to remove it too much. And then bring the brightness up a little bit. There we go. That looks good. And now that I've done that, I can go ahead and select everything, create group, and call it tree. Oopsie. Let's do it again. Group. We're going to call it tree. Press create. Okay. So now we have the whole thing set up. And then within the tree is also the base. Okay. Sweet. All right, let's keep going. And then from here, you can make adjustments. You want to make it bigger, you want to make it smaller. It's all up to you, okay? All right, now let's go ahead and put in the figures that kind of represent either, I don't know how your familiar structure works, whether it's, you know, man, woman, or if there's aliens or whatever it might be. I don't know what the structure is, but I'll just go ahead and stick with kind of the basics. So let's go back into Fantasy Regional, and there'll be some nice humanoid-like characters that we can kind of use. And we'll use royal families since, you know, kind of makes sense. Okay. Now, one thing what's really nice about the faded thing is that the faded feature can help to also remove some of shadow work as well. So let's go ahead and put one character here, and then we'll put another character right here. There we go. And we might want to even increase them to the largest scale. And we'll lock the tree so don't accidentally select it. So let's scale these all the way up. In fact, we'll make them a little bit bigger. There we go. Give them a little bit of size to it. Okay, that looks good. I'd say right about there looks good. And this one right here looks good right about there. Okay, now we have that. Okay, all right. All right, next step. All right, so now we've added those figures. Now we need to create some kind of plate or marker that's going to represent the other family members. Now, what I'm going to do is to differentiate between the offspring and then the two people who started the family is I'll use maybe a plate instead that's blank, and then you can put custom stamps like I don't know, a portrait or bust or profile picture of characters inside of it. So we'll go in the next part. And what I'll do is there's a couple ways that you can kind of make these plates. You can use the shape tool. You can use legends. There's a whole host of ways that you can do this. So it's really up to you. And this really depends on the theme, right? So like if it was vampires, then maybe you want to create a character plate that's got blood and skulls on it or something, right? It really depends. So I'll go back to Fantasy World. We'll just use a legend for this. And I'll take the legend, I'm going to make it a little bit smaller, and then I'll rotate it. And this is going to represent the figures. And so what you would have here is that inside of it, you would have some kind of character portrait or whatever representing the offspring. But before we do that, let's add in one more thing. Let's also add in the banner so we can put down the name. And you can have like a single, if you don't want to have the names of the family members, you don't have to do that. You could just have the name of the whole family itself. Could be at the base of the tree, so you don't have to put down one here, one here. You could just put down one like this, and then just put the name of the family name there if you wanted to. It's up to you. It really doesn't matter which way you go about doing it. Sometimes I'll do the whole family name, sometimes I'll do the individual name, so it's up to you. Okay, now that I've done that part, then I can go ahead and throw in some kind of banner here. It's going to be at the base of that. And if you want, you can add a little detail to the top. What would you consider like some kind of crown piece or something? We could do that. Like I could even use like this right here and then just put that in the background and then turn off that shadow. There you go. And a little too much contrast there. So I can bring the contrast down. There we go. And then just group this. We'll put in a question mark as well because something is supposed to go inside of that. There we go. Let's use a Lusitania and we'll use black. There we go. And I'll turn off the outline. Perfect. And then I can just change the scale of this. Oopsie. And we'll put that on top. There we go. And I'll bring the opacity down a little bit as well. There we go. Perfect. And just place it at the top. Create group. Create. There you go. Now that you have that, now you can start putting in the groups. So if I want, I can go ahead and put in copy, paste, copy, paste. And what you do is you say the offspring. So the first line at the bottom, closest, is going to be the second born, right? So you'll put those there. Okay. All right. I try not to struggle too much with numbers. The math is not my strong suit, but everyone does their creative process differently. There isn't any particularly wrong way to do that. Like my method might not work for everybody else. Some people might focus on the number part, and that's fine, right? I mean, everyone has a different approach to how they do art. I mean, there isn't really a wrong way outside of just stealing people's art, but there's no real wrong way, right? If you prefer the numbers game, you like the math more than focusing on appearance, that's fine. It's really up to you, right? That's the beauty of Inkarnate. That's the beauty of being creative, is that you can do it any way that you want. There's not really a wrong way, okay? So just kind of keep that in mind here. And of course, if you have questions or you feel there's a better way to do it, right? My method is not perfect. It works for me. It's not going to work for everybody. Okay, so now that I've done that part, now I want to create some space and I want to show further offspring, right? So I'll create some here, And then I want some right here, some more offspring. And then I can kind of copy and paste and save these. And you can start putting your offspring here. So that first row is the second born at the bottom, and then the next row up, third, fourth, fifth, and it goes up the line for each generation. So each one of these lines of plates right here represents generations, right? So you start with first generation down at the bottom where the base is, second generation, third, and then just keep moving your way up the tree, creating further and further generations. And one thing you can do is you can also make them different in each row. Like in this generation, these plates are bigger, but if you want, you can make the plate smaller in the second generation, right? Just barely noticeable bigger, smaller. And then I can do the same thing to the next row, just make it smaller, smaller. And what that will do is it will also make room as well, right? And it will also make a distinction or a difference between the different generations, right? Because the plates are so similar to each other. They're the exact same plate. This way, I can go ahead and I can have a very distinct difference between the generations this way. Very helpful to do that. And then you just bring the scale down again, and then let's make it put it there. And then I can copy and paste these and just continue to go up generation after generation after generation. And if you run out of room, then all you have to do is just resize, add more foliage, and then continue adding more plates. So totally easy to replicate, right? You just need to start with the base, and then you need to start with the tree part. And, you know, not every family tree is going to be specifically a tree. You can actually make all kinds of variations. You don't have to limit yourself to a tree. And then I'll just leave these the same size up here. You see how it's kind of coming together when you start putting things together like this. And the way is that now at first you might be thinking like, well, it's not really giving me the structure itself, right? Right now I don't know whose kids are whose or whatnot, right? Well, that part's not complex. And from here, you need to create connecting lines that go between each one. And this is not complex. You just use the line tool. And I'm going to use a color. I'm not going to use a stamp. I mean, you can use a stamp if you want to. We could use this right here. This could work just fine. And then you would just have a line that goes across to each one. Let's go ahead and change the size of this. There we go. I think gold is the right color. That looks fine. Yep, vines too. There are so many different ways to connect it. With the vampire one I created, I used blood lines of blood going down from each thing. You could use vines. I love all of that. It's a great idea. And it really depends on what kind of tree that you're making, right? For instance, see, the vines are already green, and so they will be hidden. They'll kind of get lost in the green of the tree. So if you are going to do green vines, then maybe you should change the color of the tree to a complementary color that's complementary to the yellow, to the green, right? Because if it's all green, then it's gonna not really stick out. That's why I'm using this yellow one instead. Well, I'll put down a vine so you can see it though. Just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. Vine here. Oops, I believe it's in Fantasy Battle Maps. And there's a lot of different vines you can choose from, like this young grapevine. You could use like a thorny grapevine. Maybe you want to do a gothic horror theme. You'd use this. A jungle vine, that kind of theme. Grapes to kind of show fertility. Whatever you want to do, it all works, right? And you see what the issue that I'm talking about is that the green, you can't really see it, right? Because it's with that, they're both green, and so it doesn't really pop out. So that's why I'm using this yellow. So always remember that when you're kind of putting things together to have some kind of color theme or some kind of continuity in your color palette, complementary colors, whether it's a triadic color scheme or a 2-color system or more complex than that. That's up to you to decide how to do it. Once you've made that piece, then you can go and start connecting the other ones, right? So maybe you want to start putting these pieces together, and you would just connect them kind of like this, putting these pieces together like that. And you can have them lined up perfectly. You can do whatever you want, right? That's up to you how you want to do it. Like, you see how these aren't kind of lined up perfectly? I can do that if I want to. Just have them come perfectly symmetrically above this piece. So that way there's no real confusion. If that's the way you want to go about doing it, that's fine. Up to you. Yep, you can pretty much use blood for everything. I can't disagree with that. Okay, now that I've done that, now I can go in and actually kind of create those pieces. And what's really cool is I can just go ahead and select this, copy, paste, and then just flip it. And then I have it available right there for me. And then I can just copy and paste these like this. There we go. And now you have your family tree kind of set together. I'll go ahead and line these up too if you want. It's up to you. So you're starting to see the lines are kind of coming together, and it's starting to kind of piece together. We'll change filters too if it's a little too much. Bob Ross. People have called me the Bob Ross of Inkarnate. That's so funny. I love that. I don't hold a candle to Bob Ross. Let's just be honest here. Bob Ross is amazing. Okay. So, I mean, the process here is exactly the same, right? We're going to start piecing together these, and then we're going to connect them together. Right? So we can kind of go about doing that. Copy, paste, put one here. Maybe one person, maybe only had one child, right? Whatever it is you want it to be. Up to you how you want to put it together. Same thing, and I'll just go do the exact same thing. Let's put one up this way, and then we'll put one that goes up over here and connects like this. That's a big compliment. I love Bob Ross. Bob Ross is amazing. Okay, there we go. So you see that we're kind of putting the family tree together, and that yellow sticks out. Let me just make sure. I don't want it to fade away. I think it looks good. Okay, let's keep going. I'm just going to keep adding it. Where are we at for time? Oh, wow, this didn't take long at all. See, it's super easy to make these family trees. It's super nice, right? You'd think they'd be a little bit more complex, but the trick is just having a method, right? That's the trick. You want to make sure that you're building at a quick speed and you're doing it accurately and it looks nice. It's all about having a method, right? Method is everything. A method is going to create a way or a process that you can use, and your process is going to change and refine as you can make more and more stuff. The more and more you work with Inkarnate, the more and more your process will evolve and get better. And of course, you should always try to evolve and get better, right? That's kind of important. Okay, let's see here. We're getting close. Let's go ahead and connect this one. This person only had one child. And if you want, you can add a second piece like their spouse. Like, let's say you want to add a spouse piece. You can just connect it right here like this and say that that's a spouse. And you can even change the color or the design of it. It's up to you. Because I've noticed that I've only got one kid, but what happens if you want to include the spouse, whatever? You can totally throw in those as well. That's up to you how you want to do it, right? I mean, every family structure, the thing's different, how you want to put it together. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and add all the pieces that I can, connect all of them, and then we'll move on to the last bits, which are not complex. They're pretty easy. Okay, that looks good. Put another one in right here. All right. Oh, they had a kid. Yep. I'll move them over here. Awesome. Okay, how far are we? Oh, yep, we're moving right along. Sweet. Okay, let's say that they had a child here. And what's cool is that applying this method works for any theme. It does not matter. Whether it's vampire, orc chieftains, whatever it might be. And that's the beauty of having a method, right? Okay, let's go ahead and connect these two. And then we'll go ahead and put a line that connects this. Okay, oops, let's go up a little bit. Right here, like that. There we go. Okay, cool. All right, we are getting there. They didn't have any children. Let's do that. No children for that one. Yep, a gallery. Oh, I love that. Yeah, a gallery of paintings. Like make like a wall, and then have like a big, like maybe an A-frame wall, and then maybe have a series of portraits on the wall. Maybe even add a fireplace in the center, like a beautiful fireplace, and then have the portrait pictures on there. That would look great. I love that idea. That's super cool. Very, very good thinking. Love it. Yeah, maybe add a window somewhere to break up the symmetry. I mean, whatever you want, right? I mean, the thing is that you can use whatever, design that you want, right? It doesn't have to be a tree. It could be anything. So many different ways to go about making a family tree. Really, it's unlimited, and that makes it more fun, right? Okay, let's see here. Where we got left here? Oh, we're almost done. Let's go ahead and say they didn't have any kids, so we'll go ahead and push it here. And then we'll add some details. We'll add in the last part. I'm glad this didn't take very long. Cool. Almost there. Cool. All right. Let's go ahead and add in the last bits. And you can make your own portraits, like you can hand draw your own or whatever. There's a lot of different ways you can kind of go about doing this. Let's go ahead and put this one going over to here like that. A little bit more interesting, right? There we go. Okay, let's take a step back and look at it, and we'll save. So a lot of changes there. Looking good. Okay, the family tree is coming together. The one thing I kind of notice about it is that there isn't much going on in the background, and that kind of leaves a negative space. By negative space, I mean this specifically. If you're kind of curious what I mean by that, it's this right here. There's a lot of negative space right here in these spaces, and I don't really like that. And so we're probably going to want to add something in these spaces to kind of break that up. One of the first things we could do is add a frame. A frame would be very helpful. And we can use the same yellow design right here, these yellow border right here, because that way we have some continuity. So I'll turn the grid on. And then from here, I'll switch back to 40. And then I can go ahead and go turn merge stroke off, and then go to stroke stamp. And then I want to choose rectangle, and then I'm going to choose snap to grid here at the base. And then we'll create a little bit of a frame. Go down, and I'll have the frame be underneath. So now you have a nice frame there. And if you want, you can make it a little bit bigger too. Let's also turn off the shadow. I don't need that. And then, oh yeah, patron deities, whatever you want to put in the corner. There's so many different things you want to do. You could put the heraldry. You could put the maybe the city. You could build a city picture in the background at the base here, kind of showing, I mean, whatever you want, right? I mean, there's so many different ways that you can kind of go about doing this. So what I'll do is, since we have so much time left, let's do a couple variations of it. We'll start with Fantasy World, and then we'll use some of these really nice front-facing stamps right here. And we can kind of use these. So maybe we want to represent the castle or the place in which they live, right? So maybe we want to throw a little scene in. So I can go ahead and just push this down a layer like this. Let's push it down a layer. There we go. And I can put them in the corner. Like I can put a scene here in the corner. I can put in like maybe the city. And so I can kind of throw in more of these kind of stamps right here. Like here's a city stamp right here. You can put that there. And then we can put like, let's see here. Let's go with more orange ones. Let's see. Let's go with this one. So you can kind of create these multiple like scenes, like you can have a city here, and you might notice that it kind of sticks out and it looks wrong. So one thing you could do is you could change the blend mode to where it has the same color as the background. And then we just bring the contrast down and the brightness up. And then what this will do is it will kind of make it look like it's a watermark. So if I keep pushing the brightness down, or the contrast down and bringing the brightness up, what I'll do is I'll create this illusion that the background is a series of watermarks. So kind of a nice little trick that you can kind of do there. And then you could throw in whatever you want in those corners. So that's one way to go about doing it. Throwing in a nice city landscape. This is the city in which this royal family or whatever family lives or is occupies, right? So that's one way you can go about doing it. Other things you can do are throwing in maybe some frame art. Like there is these nice, beautiful frame pieces here, like these right here. These work just fine as well. So I could place one of these in a corner. Let's turn the snap to grid off so I don't accidentally select it. So you could do this. We could flip these and then put these in the corner. That's another way to do it. And let's also turn the shadows off. I'm noticing the shadows don't look good, so we'll turn those off. So those go off. And then there should be some top corner pieces as well, these ones, and we'll turn that shadow off again. I can place this, line it up, so I could do it that way. Let's flip it. So I could make it like this, so you have a series of nice little frame pieces here. That works out, and it doesn't distract too much. It's just corner pieces, and it does kind of complement the tree as well. So that works nice, so you can do that. Or you can use, and then again, you can do the same trick. If you think these four pieces kind of stick out, remember that same trick. You can go to luminosity, and then you can just bring the contrast down and the brightness up, and then there you have your watermark, your kind of watermark like pieces. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of go about doing it. Let's go do one more to kind of show you the last bits. Like maybe I want to show, maybe I want to use heraldry, right? Like what are the two royal families that came together to produce this progeny, right? And so you could have maybe the crest or royal, the heraldry of this family over here on this side, her royal family, her lineage, and on this side could be the lineage of the heraldry of that other character right there, right? So that's another way you can go about doing it. So we could add these heraldry pieces. You can put them up in the corner. Maybe you want to have it up here instead of down there. It's up to you. No, maybe you want to have them up here like that. Maybe you want a mix of all of that. Maybe you want heraldry and the city piece at the bottom, or the frame pieces plus the heraldry, right? There's so many different ways that you can kind of go about doing it. Of course, if you're going to have heraldry throw in like their whatever kind of icon that kind of represents them, like maybe a dragon over here. The dragon meets the eagle or something, you know what I mean? Whatever it might be. You can throw those pieces in there. So you have your royal family. So a lot of different ways that you can kind of go about doing it. I did like the frame thing. So I think what I'll do is I'll just undo till we get back to the frame, because I did like that, and not the luminosity piece, actually, the ones that are colored. All right, that looks good. And the last thing, and then there's a couple things too. You could add more to the frame. The frame is very simple. Someone earlier mentioned adding some vines. And I actually kind of like that vine idea. I think that could look interesting. So let's go do that then. We'll go into fantasy battle maps. We'll type in vine. And there are a lot of different ways we can do a thorny vine or a jungle vine, whichever works. It doesn't really matter. Let's go with this one. And then what I'll do is I'll just place one down real quick just to see what it looks like. Okay, it looks like it should be edited more. We can start with by turning off the caps. I don't need the caps. I can also turn the shadow off. I don't need that. And let's also change the size. And what I want to do is maybe create this illusion that there's some vines wrapping around the frame, right? So what I could do is I could start here and then go like this. And then what I can do is I'm going to have two variations. Ones that go behind, and then one that goes behind. So right now it's going behind like this. And it doesn't have to be perfect. And then some go in front and some go behind, right? So I'll push up here, and I can go in here like this. And you can kind of create this illusion of these vines going around the tree. And what I can do is I can just copy and paste a couple of these. And this way I can give myself less work. So I can just go copy, paste, put it here, flip this. I think that looks good. We'll put one there. And then I can select every single one of these, select all from this style, and then just copy and paste them. And then I can just kind of place them wherever I want along here. So I'll put one over here like this. And then I'll put another one over here like this. And what I can do is I'll rotate it so it doesn't look exactly the same from the one across. There we go. And then I can just keep adding some more pieces. Like maybe I can add, copy and paste this piece over to here like that, and I'll just flip it around. Okay. Yep, gods, deities. In the illustrative map frame, I did do that. We can have all these gods in the background. If you were to do that, because there's still a lot of negative space here, if you were to create the gods, then I would totally recommend that you have them set to luminosity. We'll put in one god for right now. Let's do that. One of the best, I find that corpses work fantastic for deities. They're kind of in this, these kind of poses that may look like they're dead, but when you add stamps to it, it actually looks like something different. Like this one right here is kind of interesting. It looks like they're levitating. So I can go in and turn off the shadow, and I might even bring the contrast down on this a little bit more. And let's change the blend mode to luminosity, and we'll do that contrast trick I was talking about. There we go. Bring the contrast down even more. And then I think I might need to bring the brightness down just a little bit. There we go. And then what you can do is make a series of these that are in the background. And then they can be like maybe holding up the tree. They could be like the patron gods that hold it together. So you can do that. Let's go back to luminosity here. And then I'll turn the shadow off on them. And then we can put a series of kind of gods or goddesses or whatever, kind of like standing here and kind of setting things up. So we'll put another one up over here. If you don't like them up there, down there, you can put them up here. It's up to you. So there's a lot of different ways that you can kind of go about doing it. And then you can add things to them like capes, wings, whatever stamps that you kind of want to kind of represent pieces that make them look godlike. It's really up to you and how you want to do it. Like maybe you want to give one of them wings, so we could take like a goose like this, and you've got this nice wingspan right here. We'll just place it like right behind it and do that same trick. Remember, you change the blend mode to luminosity, contrast, and bring the brightness up, and then you got some wings to a wing god right there. And if maybe you want them all to have gods, maybe they're specifically winged deities, you could do that. So you could place one here, place another one right here. They look a little dark, so I might have to like make them a little bit brighter. I've kind of noticed. There we go. Looks good. Got some wings there. Yeah, let's go ahead and select all from the set. And I'll just quickly bring the brightness up just a little bit more. There we go. And so now you have these kind of angel-like pieces or whatever, patron gods, goddesses, whatever, kind of filling in the negative space. And of course, if these are just too much, you can always, again, just bring the contrast and the brightness down on these to make them blend more and more into the background. So there's always ways to kind of go about doing it. It's up to you. But I do like the chorus of kind of angel-like figures kind of putting it together. I think that looks kind of cool. So now you have kind of that together. Let's go ahead and save it. Yeah, very cool design. Enjoying it. Like the overall look of it. And then we can add in some final filters because I think we're almost done. Also, you could also put like insets or inserts, like you could put in text. Maybe you want some family history or something. You can put some text in here and then you can even have the text be over, kind of be over the characters. Because they are a watermark like thing, you could just go in and just change the size and then bring the opacity up a little bit so that way it sticks out. And then you have a little bit of line of text in these areas like this, kind of giving you the history maybe on both sides or explaining the gods or whatever it might be. So all kinds of cool tricks that you can kind of do there. So just think about the theme and kind of how to put it together. And I will make sure that this map is clonable so you can clone and edit if you want to use it. And I'll just go ahead and add the last bit of vine to the base of the frame. And then we'll add in the last part, which is the last bit of filters. And I think 43, yeah, we're doing good. I'll go ahead and flip these, go this way, just a little bit of vine work. You could also put like stuff on the vine work. Like maybe you wanted to put some flowers. Like maybe I want to put a flower on the vine. That could make it pop out a little bit more. So I can go in like this. And let's, I think blue looks good. Like I look at the blue, there's not a lot of that color. So if I just take one of these flowers right here and just scale them down and just put them right on top like this. And we'll place just a couple of them, one here. And we'll start with big flowers and then we'll move on to smaller variations. Everyone knows my trick. It's all about variation. Yes, I think the blue looks very pretty. So we'll throw in that. Don't put down too many. Just put like maybe 2 or 3 on each vine or 1. Whatever it might be. Don't do the exact same. This is a numbers thing, right? Don't do the exact same numbers. Like there's 3 on every single vine, right? Don't do that. So then I'll just bring the scale down and make some smaller variations of it. Oopsie, I kind of noticed that those flowers right here are kind of need to go up a layer. My mistake there. Go up a layer. There we go. And we'll take these smaller flowers and I'm going to put them, some smaller ones, maybe put like a cluster of smaller ones. Oopsie, go up a layer, my bad. A cluster of flowers here. Oop, a little too small. There we go. Here, here. And if you want, you could even add flowers to the tree if you wanted to. So many ways, so many things that you can do. It's amazing. It's all about being creative, figuring out your theme. I personally love the details, and so this is like my favorite part of the map process is putting in all those juicy, delicious details. Yes, the flowers look good. I think that adds a lot to the frame. That looks nice. Let's go ahead and add another filter too. I want it to have like a parchment kind of look to it. So if I go to filters And then I go into fantasy world. There should be a leather filter. You're going to have to change the blend mode to overlay. And then what I'll do is I'll bring this all the way up so we can see those artifacts. Now, when I turn the leather off, you'll notice that what it does, right? It adds these artifacts to the map, giving it a kind of a leathery look to it. There we go. Okay. All right, I'll go quickly save it. There we go. And I'll be showing more videos too on how to make these more storybook type of look using filters. So in the future, we'll probably be covering that. I'm going to quickly just go over, quickly review what we went over, and then we're going to call it good. So as I mentioned in the beginning, you're going to make that base. Then you're going to make the tree itself. Remember what I mentioned about using trees. Fantasy regional have shadows. You'll notice, and once you start scaling them up, they start looking really weird. And so instead, maybe use a fantasy battle map, broken a dead tree like this one. Then you can hide the issues with it. Notice that we hid the inconsistency at the base of the tree where the trunk is with grass, and then we also hid the inconsistency with the branches at the top by putting tree stamps on top of that. So you'll fill out the foliage, then you'll group everything, and then you'll put down the first generation family. It could be whatever you want. If it's vampires, one person. If it's a family, then put in the patriarch and matriarch. If it's aliens, then maybe it requires 3 people to give birth to children. I don't know. Whatever your method, whatever it is, how your world works, right? Or if it's not a family tree, maybe it's the lineage of Grand Masters at a mage's college. Whatever you want, right? It doesn't have to be familiar bonds. It could be people who have been in succession to important jobs, mage colleges, whatever it might be, right? And then once you've put those elements, then you'll move on to creating these little plates, right? And you'll notice that I did change the size with each generation going up. I made them smaller for 2 reasons. 1, to show a generational difference. 2, so that I could add more room to put these plates on the tree, right? So that's helpful. And then I connect the plates using the line tool, and with these nice yellow lines, and the yellow and green go really, really well together. So I put those 2 together. And then I also put down the frame that went around it. We decorated the frame with vines and flowers. We added in these frame corner pieces, and then we finally added in these deity pieces. And you can add more to it. You could put a crown on their head. You could add whatever you want to it. Okay. And then of course we did the filters. And for just a quick reminder on the filters, I used leather to create that leathery look. I used faded to fade out the colors and give it that storybook look. You need to use faded to create a storybook look. You need to use the color adjustments to do further adjustments with contrast. If you want it to be even more faded out, like a watercolor kind of look to it. And then as clarity as well. And then you could add other color filters like red. Like if you wanted to, we could add in a color filter. And there's a lot we could choose from. So not clarity, but you could go with, there's cold warm. There's like parchment. If you want a more reddish parchment color, maybe you want a bluish color. Maybe you want it to be this darker night scene. Maybe you want it to be this reddish color. Maybe you want it to be winter. Maybe you want it to be black and white to print. Grayscale, sepia. You want it to be this yellowish color. Okay? There's all these different ways to kind of go about doing it. I'll just leave it. I kind of like it as is, just like this. So I probably won't add a color filter to it, but I think you get the general idea on how to put them together. And again, the structure, it just remains the same, right? You need to have progenitor. You're going to have the people who created the family or the structure, and then they all branch out into future generations or Grand Masters or kings or whatever it might be. It's not complex. It's a super easy thing to put together, okay? All right. Well, that is it for this stream. I'm glad that we were able to get this done quickly. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ping me on Discord. If you haven't joined Discord, I totally recommend it, and I can help you with your map or whatever you need. We have one more stream this week and actually this month. I think it's part 6 of creating an epic world, I believe. So that's coming out. I'm excited about that. And we've released the stream schedule for next month, which I'm excited about. So definitely go check that out on our Discord or check your notifications. All right, I'm done blabbing. I will see you all on Friday. Please stay safe and healthy, and merry map making, everyone. Thank you so much. Take care.